The 1980s gave us cartoon narcissists, characters so in love with their own reflection, their own voice, their own delusional sense of superiority that they sabotaged their own plans just to monologue about how brilliant they were. And we ate it up every single time. Today, we're counting down the 10 greatest narcissists in 80s cartoons, from number 10 all the way to the undisputed mastermind of self-obsessed villainy. And I promise you, number 1 earned that crown by being the most gloriously delusional character in animation history. Let's get into it. Number 10. Garfield. Garfield and Friends, 1988 to 1994. We're starting this list with a curveball. Because Garfield isn't a villain. He's not trying to conquer anything. He's not scheming to take over the world. But make no mistake, Garfield is one of the purest narcissists in cartoon history. This cat genuinely believes the entire universe revolves around him. And honestly, he might be right. John exists to feed him. Odie exists to be kicked off the table. The mailman exists to be terrorized. Garfield doesn't just have main character syndrome. He invented it. He's lazy, selfish, manipulative, and completely unapologetic about all of it. Every episode is just Garfield bending reality around his own comfort. He treats Monday like a personal insult from the cosmos. He's the narcissist we secretly related to, and that's what makes him dangerous. Number 9. Pizzazz. Jem and the Holograms, 1985 to 1988. If you grew up watching Jem, you remember Pizzazz, lead singer of the Misfits, daughter of a neglectful millionaire, owner of the most impressive temper tantrums in animated history. Pizzazz didn't just want fame, she felt physically entitled to it. Every episode where Jem got attention, Pizzazz treated it like a personal attack on her existence. Her narcissism wasn't subtle. She sabotaged concerts, she bribed judges, she committed what would technically be considered multiple felonies just to make sure her band got more airtime. And the wildest part? She had actual talent. The Misfits genuinely slapped, but talent was never enough for Pizzazz. She needed to be the only one in the room. The moment anyone else shone, she went nuclear. Classic narcissistic injury, animated in neon pink and green. The Misfits were so popular with audiences that Hasbro received bags of fan mail asking for the Misfits to win for once. Internal memos reportedly showed that producers considered giving them a spin-off, but the idea was shelved because the show's toy sales were tied to Jem being the hero. The villains were literally too likable for the business model.
The total eclipse, the moon's overtaken the sun.
Number 8. Hordak. She-Ra, Princess of Power, 1985 to 1987. Hordak ran the Fright Zone like it was his personal palace, which technically it was. He was the supreme leader of the evil horde, the conqueror of Etheria, and the most insecure dictator in cartoon history. Every single decision Hordak made was about maintaining his image. He built statues of himself. He demanded constant praise from his subordinates. He threw tantrums that would make a toddler blush when things didn't go his way. And here's the narcissist's paradox with Hordak. He was genuinely powerful. He had armies, technology, dark magic, but none of it was ever enough because what he really craved was validation. He needed everyone to acknowledge that he was the greatest. When She-Ra kept beating him, it wasn't the military losses that hurt. It was the ego damage. He couldn't process the idea that someone could defy him and survive.
Big troopers singing! That's it! I can't stand anymore!
Number 7. Krang. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, 1987 to 1996. Krang is a disembodied brain from Dimension X who lives in the belly of a giant android body. Read that sentence again. That's the actual premise. And somehow, despite being a literal brain in a robot stomach, Krang had the biggest ego of anyone in the entire Ninja Turtles universe. His relationship with Shredder was pure narcissistic gold. Two massive egos crammed into the Technodrome, each convinced the other was the idiot dragging them down. Krang constantly belittled Shredder. Shredder constantly ignored Krang's plans. Together, they had the combined strategic effectiveness of a wet paper bag. Krang genuinely believed he was the smartest being in any dimension, and his inability to recognize his own incompetence was the engine that drove half the comedy in the show. Krang didn't exist in the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comics. He was created specifically for the cartoon, loosely inspired by the Utroms, a race of brain-like aliens from the Mirage comics.
Nothing can stop the almighty Krang!
Number 6. Mumm-Ra, Thundercats, 1985 to 1989. Mumm-Ra the Ever-Living. Just the name drips with narcissism. This ancient sorcerer wrapped in bandages had been alive for centuries, drawing power from ancient spirits of evil, and he spent every waking moment trying to destroy a group of space cats because their leader had a shiny sword he couldn't have. His transformation sequence was peak narcissism. He'd stand in front of his sarcophagus, call upon the ancient spirits, bulk up into this massive muscular demon form, and roar his own name at the camera. Every single time, he never got tired of it. It was his favorite part of the day. The actual fighting? That was secondary. The moment where he got to dramatically announce himself to the universe? That was the point. Mumm-Ra lost constantly, retreated to his pyramid, and did it all again next week with zero self-awareness. Earl Hammond, who voiced Mumm-Ra, was in his 60s during recording and had a background in radio drama. His booming delivery of ancient spirits of evil transformed this decayed form, became so iconic that the producers asked him to improvise additional villain monologues. We're halfway through the countdown, and we haven't even gotten to the truly unhinged ones yet. If you're enjoying this, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which 80s narcissist you think deserves the crown. Trust me, the top 5 are where it gets absolutely ridiculous. Number 5. Dr. Claw, Inspector Gadget, 1983 to 1986. You never saw his face. In over 80 episodes, Dr. Claw sat in that chair, stroked his cat, and growled threats at a screen while a bumbling idiot with helicopter hair accidentally dismantled his operations. And yet, Dr. Claw never once questioned his own brilliance. Not once. Think about that level of delusion. Every single plan failed, every agent got captured, every scheme got foiled by a man who couldn't tell the difference between a clue and a sandwich. And after every defeat, Dr. Claw's response wasn't, "Maybe I should rethink my approach." It was, "I'll get you next time, Gadget, next time." The same words, the same fist, the same absolute refusal to accept that maybe, just maybe, the problem was him. That's not just narcissism, that's narcissism with a lifetime warranty. Number 4. Venger, Dungeons & Dragons, 1983 to 1985. Venger is the most underrated narcissist on this list. A one-horned dark lord who terrorized a group of lost children across a magical realm because they had weapons he wanted, not needed, wanted. Venger had an entire kingdom of darkness. He had armies of orcs and shadow demons. He could have simply ruled his domain in peace. But no, he couldn't tolerate the idea that 6 kids from Earth had magical items that he didn't possess. His narcissism was existential. He needed to be the most powerful being in the realm, not one of the most powerful. The most powerful. The existence of anyone with abilities he lacked was a personal insult. And here's the kicker. Those kids could barely use their weapons properly. They were terrified half the time. But Venger treated every encounter like a battle against worthy adversaries, because admitting he was chasing frightened children would shatter his self-image. The show had a famously unproduced final episode called Requiem, where it's revealed that Venger is the Dungeon Master's corrupted son. The script was written, storyboarded, and ready to animate when CBS canceled the show.
They are all that stand between me and complete mastery of the realm.
Number 3. Cobra Commander, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, 1983 to 1986. Cobra Commander might be the most realistic narcissist on this list, and that's terrifying. Underneath that chrome faceplate or that cloth hood, depending on the episode, was a man who genuinely believed he was destined to rule the world. Not because he was the strongest or the smartest, but because he simply deserved it. In his mind, the universe owed him global domination. He surrounded himself with people who were smarter than him, Destro, the Baroness, Dr. Mindbender, and then took credit for everything they did. When plans succeeded, he was a genius. When plans failed, it was everyone else's incompetence. He screamed at subordinates. He ran from battles. He blamed his generals for his own terrible strategies. He was the world's worst boss running the world's most dysfunctional terrorist organization. And his voice, that shrill, whining, screeching voice, you could hear the narcissistic rage in every syllable. Chris Latta, who voiced Cobra Commander, also voiced Starscream in the Transformers, meaning he played the two greatest cartoon narcissists of the decade simultaneously. Producers on both shows reportedly had to remind Latta to differentiate the voices because his natural instinct for scheming, whiny villain kept bleeding between characters. Latta passed away in 1994, and both roles have been recast multiple times since, but we can all agree that nobody captured that specific flavor of pathetic megalomania like he did.
You are now Cobra's prisoner, and your friends will soon join you.
Number 2, Starscream, The Transformers, 1984 to 1987. Speaking of Chris Latta, here's his masterpiece. Starscream is the textbook definition of narcissistic personality disorder, animated in red, white, and blue jet form. His entire existence revolved around one goal: replacing Megatron as leader of the Decepticons, not because he had a better vision, not because he disagreed with the strategy, but because he believed, with every fiber of his robot soul, that he was simply better. He wasn't better. He was categorically, demonstrably worse at everything. He was a terrible leader, a coward in battle, a backstabber who telegraphed every betrayal so obviously that even Megatron, who wasn't exactly known for his emotional intelligence, could see them coming from orbit. And yet Starscream never learned. Every failed coup was followed by groveling, which was followed by another coup attempt, which was followed by more groveling. The cycle was endless. The self-awareness was non-existent, and the audience couldn't look away because watching someone that delusional operate at that level of confidence is genuinely hypnotic. In the 1986 Transformers movie, Starscream finally gets his coronation as Decepticon leader for approximately 30 seconds before Galvatron vaporizes him. The writers intended this as the ultimate punchline to his entire character arc. But here's the truly wild part. Starscream's ghost literally came back in later episodes, still scheming, still plotting to lead, still completely incapable of accepting that he lost. Not even death could cure his narcissism. The writers joked that Starscream's ego was the one thing that was truly indestructible.
If Megatron can have his Blitzwing, so can I!
Number 1, Skeletor, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 1983 to 1985. No doubt about this one. Skeletor is the undisputed, undefeated, all-time heavyweight champion of cartoon narcissism. A skull-faced sorcerer who lived in a place called Snake Mountain, surrounded by the most incompetent minions in animation history, and who spent every single day trying to break into a castle to steal a man's sword. That's the premise. That's it. And somehow, Skeletor made it feel like the most important mission in the universe, because to him, it was. His narcissism was operatic. He didn't just want Castle Grayskull. He needed everyone to know he deserved Castle Grayskull. He monologued to his minions. He monologued to his enemies. He monologued to himself in an empty room. Every defeat was someone else's fault. Every setback was a temporary inconvenience that would be corrected once the universe finally recognized his genius. Beastman was useless. Trapjaw was an idiot. Evil Lyn was the only competent one, and Skeletor treated her like an intern. He had the magical ability to blame everyone in the room for his failures, while simultaneously taking credit for things that hadn't even happened yet. And the voice. Alan Oppenheimer's performance is the single greatest villain voice in cartoon history. That nasally, theatrical, slightly unhinged delivery turned every line into a one-man show. Skeletor didn't speak. He performed. Even his insults were rehearsed. He was Shakespeare's Richard III if Richard III had a skull for a face and lived in a snake. Skeletor is number 1 because he isn't just a narcissist. He's the narcissist, the template, the blueprint. Every egomaniacal cartoon villain that came after him owes him a debt. and he would absolutely demand they acknowledge it. Alan Oppenheimer has said in interviews that he based Skeletor's voice on a combination of a wicked theatrical villain and a whiny neighbor he once had. The character was originally scripted to be more straightforwardly menacing, but Oppenheimer's comedic delivery was so compelling that the writers leaned into the humor. By the show's end, Skeletor had more funny lines than most of the heroes. Filmation produced 130 episodes, and Skeletor never once succeeded in conquering Grayskull, a losing streak so legendary that it arguably made him more beloved than He-Man himself.
Why do I surround myself with fools? Even the robots are smarter than you!
The 1980s understood something that modern television keeps forgetting. The best villains aren't the ones who are cool and collected. The best villains are the ones who are so completely absorbed in their own delusion that they can't see the disaster coming. We didn't watch these characters because they were scary. We watched them because they were us on our worst day, cranked up to 11 and animated in bright colors. Every narcissist on this list failed, and they got up the next episode and did it again, because that's what narcissism does. It doesn't let you learn. Drop a comment and tell me, who's your favorite 80s cartoon narcissist? And who else deserves a place in this list? Hit subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you in the next one.